Hello everyone, welcome to the seventh video on AWS Solution Architect Certification Practice Questions. In this one, we're going to focus on hybrid connectivity and multi-VPC. Now let's look at the first question. A leading telecom company chose AWS as their cloud platform and enabled hybrid connectivity using AWS Direct Connect and Transit Gateway. The company has large number of AWS accounts managed by AWS organization. Many apps deployed on AWS services in different accounts need to be able to connect to external services via internet for security patches. However, no external service outside the organization should be able to initiate the connection with AWS resources. What is the most cost-effective strategy to allow multiple apps use NAT gateway for outbound only IP for internet access? So what are the key requirement we need to keep in mind for this question is that first of all they have hybrid connectivity between on-prem and AWS using direct connect transit gateway. Then a lot of these accounts have applications which need to connect to the internet. They should be able to initiate the connection. There should be no connection from outside. So that means you will have to use a NAT gateway. One of the options obviously have a NAT gateway at each account level, but that might not be a cost-effective solution. So now let's look at what is the most cost-effective solution. So let's look at the option. So set up a NAT gateway in each VPC private subnet where app requires to access the internet for patching or upgrade process. So obviously this one is not correct. First, the NAT gateway needs to be in a public subnet, not private subnet. The second one is that you don't want to have a NAT gateway for each account because there are a large number of accounts. So it will not be a very cost-effective solution. So this might not be a correct one. Let's look at the second one. Set up a NAT gateway in each VPC public subnet where the app requires access to the internet for patching or upgrade process. So this is correct. You will have the NAT gateway for each in the VPC subnet. But if this is the most cost effective, because this is what they're looking at, most cost effective, we'll have to check. So this is partially correct. This is an option, but not maybe the right one because of the cost effectiveness. Now let's look at the third one. Route the traffic from different VPCs using the transit gateway to centralized VPC endpoints, which can then route the traffic to DynamoDB and S3 or the private link. Yeah, you can route the traffic from different VPC using the transit gateway. So each account will have a transit gateway attachment and then transit gateway can route the traffic. But it's saying route it to centralized VPC for DynamoDB and S3 or private link, which is not necessarily the requirement that's here. It wants to connect to internet for downloading the security patches. So this one is not the correct answer. Okay. Now the last one, centralize the NAT gateway by creating a separate egress VPC in the network service account and route all the egress traffic from spoke VPCs via NAT gateway sitting in the VPC using transit gateway. This will help avoid being built for multiple NAT gateways as there is a per hour charge for NAT gateway deployed in the different VPC. So it's saying use the transit gateway to route the traffic to a centralized account, like it could be a network account or shared service account, and then have a egress VPC where you will have the NAT gateway. So all the traffic is routed from different VPCs to this particular NAT gateway, and then the traffic can go out. So the advantage of this is then you will need just one or two NAT gateways in a single VPC, which would be highly cost effective. Although there are going to be charges, because if you are going to route the traffic through the transit gateway, there are some network bandwidth charges, but usually they are much lesser than having the charge for NAT gateway, because not NAT gateway is billed on a per hour basis. So if you have a large number of NAT gateways in different accounts, you will be billed on per hour basis. So there is also an documentation on AWS. Let me just quickly show you. So you can see here you have the networking account, and then within the networking account you have the egress VPC where you have the NAT gateway, and you have the spoke accounts which route the traffic through these spoke accounts to this transit gateway, and then it routes to the NAT gateway, and then it goes out through the egress VPC using the internet gateway. Then there is another here. So you route the traffic again to this NAT gateway in the egress VPC, and then it goes through the internet gateway. So this is how you can centralize the NAT gateway using transit gateway for a cost-effective solution. Okay, so now the fourth one is answered. Now let's look at the second question. Okay, a large bank is looking to set up hybrid connectivity between AWS and on-premise data center. It has about 8 VPCs in multiple regions. It is looking to set up direct connect service to establish connectivity between on-premise and AWS VPCs. What is the most cost-effective solution to establish the connectivity between VPC and the on-premise, assuming there is no further VPCs will be added? Okay, so what are the key requirements? So they are setting up a hybrid connectivity between AWS and on-premise data center. Interesting thing is that it has 8 VPCs in multiple regions. So this is the key requirement here. And there will be no further VPCs will be added. So what is the most cost-effective solution that can enable this connectivity using the direct connect. Okay, now let's take a look at the options. Create a private virtual interface to a VGW and attach to a VPC. Yes, this is correct, but this does not give you for the full details. It does not talk about how we are going to establish connectivity if these VPCs are in the multiple regions. So this is only a partial answer. So not correct in this case. Okay, now let's look at the second one. Create a private WIF to direct connect gateway. Okay, associated with multiple VGWs. Each VGW is attached to a VPC. Use VPN for on-premise connectivity with AWS direct connect gateway and transit gateway to connect various VPCs within the same region, and then use transit gateway pairing to connect transit gateways in each region to each other. Okay, so it's basically saying use the direct connect gateway and private WIF, and then use the direct connect gateway along with the transit gateway, and then do the pairing between each different transit gateways in each region. So what will typically happen is that you will have a transit gateway in each region which will connect using the direct connect gateway to different VPCs, and then in another VPC in a different region you will have another transit gateway, and then you can pair those two transit gateways, because transit gateway is basically a regional service. Okay, so this is correct, but let's see if it's the most cost effective solution, because what is it is looking for is the most cost effective solution. So let's take a look at the other two options we have. Create a private WIF to a direct connect gateway associated with multiple VGW. Each VGW is attached to a VPC. So now this is an interesting solution. So direct connect gateway is basically you can connect it across regions. So that's a great strength of direct connect gateway. You don't really need a transit gateway, and you can use a direct connect gateway across regions. But it has a limitation, and the limitation is that you cannot have more than 10 VPCs. If you have more than 10 VPCs, then it will not work. And here it has about 8 VPCs. So that's why, and it says in the future there will be no VPC added. So that means it's a correct fit. It is a cost effective and it meets the requirement. So compared to this is going to be more cost effective, because then you have to use transit gateway, which will again have a per hour charge, bandwidth charge. So this seems a more cost effective solution. Let's look at the last one. Create a VPN connection transit gateway or direct connect using the public WIF. Yeah, we don't want to use the public WIF. So the third one is the most appropriate answer, because the most cost effective, meeting the requirements for hybrid connectivity in this case. Okay, let me quickly show you on the documentation. So here in the documentation you can read, create a private WIF to direct connect gateway associated with multiple VGWs. Each VGW is attached to a VPC. Direct connect gateway is a globally available resource. So you can see direct connect gateway is a globally available resource, works across the regions. You can create a direct connect gateway in the region and access it all the region except China. A direct connect gateway can connect up to 10 VPCs globally in any AWS account or a single private WIF. So it has a limitation, but it's a global service. Okay. So this is the correct answer. Now let's look at the third question. A global FMCG company chose AWS as their cloud platform and enabled hybrid connectivity. It has more than 100 VPCs in multiple regions and 3 data centers. Which combination of AWS services can help the company achieve hybrid connectivity between AWS VPCs and on-premise data center with extremely low latency? Okay, so what are the key requirements? There are hundreds of AWS VPCs that it has. It has 3 data centers, and it wants to establish hybrid connectivity between all these VPCs, which are across regions, and 3 data centers. Okay, so now let's take a look at the answers. Use AWS Direct Connect for on-premise connectivity between AWS Direct Connect Gateway and Transit Gateway to connect various VPCs across regions. So yeah, these services are correct, but the Transit Gateway is a regional service, and you have VPC across regions. So this is definitely not going to work. Use VPN for on-premise connectivity with AWS. Use Transit Gateway to connect various VPCs with across regions. Yeah, this is definitely a possibility. Instead of the direct connect, you use the VPN and then use the Transit Gateway, which will work. So there are 2 flaws in this. Transit Gateway is a regional service. The second one is VPN is not going to provide you extremely low latency. You need a direct connect. So again, this is not correct, because it uses the public internet. Now let's look at the third one. Use AWS Direct Connect for on-premise connectivity with AWS Direct Connect Gateway and Transit Gateway to connect various VPCs within the same region. Then use Transit Gateway pairing to connect the transit gateways in each region, which is there. So this seems like a very good option,